Welcome to Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. On this podcast, we bring the conversation to you, sharing engaging stories that motivate and build consensus in the nonprofit community. This podcast is about the innovators, the leaders on the front lines of adversity, guiding lights in the nonprofit industry affecting change. And through their stories, we can all join forces to become Civic Warriors. Hey Warriors, welcome to today's episode of Civic Warriors, brought to you by Witham. I'm your host, Brad Caruso, leader of Witham's not-for-profit practice. Today's guest is Community Hope, represented by Carmine Deo, Chief Executive Officer of Community Hope, and Tawana Chansey, a program participant of Community Hope. Community Hope is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization located in New Jersey. Their mission is to be a beacon of hope in our community, connecting individuals and families with life-changing support, services, and housing that foster the independence and resiliency to live their best lives. The organization supports hundreds of individuals through mental health programs, military and veterans programs, and housing programs, and really fulfills a significant need for many here in the state. Carmine was a guest on our show a few years ago, and he returns to share more information about the successes that they've had in the past couple of years. Really excited to have them back and always have a great rapport and dialogue with the folks from Community Hope. Also very excited to have Chansey here to share more about how Community Hope has helped her in her journey and has helped provide assistance to her and her family. With that said, Carmine and Chansey, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Brad. And I'm glad Chansey's here with us as well today.
Yeah, no, super excited and always like to hear positive stories and how organizations help many. And we hear about it, we read about it, but now we have a live guest with us that can share a little more about it, which we're excited about. So, certainly the point of life is to give hope to many. So happy to have you both. Carmine, maybe you could start, just maybe share a little bit about your background coming at Community Hope and a little bit more about Community Hope itself.
Surely. So I've been in this field, social service, for about 35 years. I'm a licensed New Jersey clinical social worker and have a psychology and social work and business degree. So really passionate about doing this work. I've been at Community Hope for 22 years. And I've been the CEO for the last 6. And what I love so much about Community Hope is we live our mission really every day here. And it's great to see that. But also the great people here at Community Hope, whether it's the employees, our board members, and the people we serve.
Awesome. 22 years is a long time to be somewhere. I'm hitting, I think, 18 where I'm at, and it's a long time. It's good. It shows how much you care about the mission and what they do. Longevity and loyalty certainly goes a long way in our world.
One, it's the do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, at least for me.
Chansey, over to you. Maybe share a little bit about your background, how you got in contact with Community Hope.
Sure thing. Well, I'm Chansey, and I am a former member of the Army National Guard. I grew up in Irvington, New Jersey, and I joined the National Guard right after high school. And I did so after serving in the Junior Reserve Army Training Corps Officers Program. And I did 4 years there. And afterwards, I thought, what, let me join the military, because I knew that financially my position where I was, that my parents would not be able to afford for me to go to college. And I felt like joining the military was the best choice, so that I can gain some financial freedom, be able to go to college, become a great citizen of my country, and to just meet and learn new things. So, after I graduated, I decided to join different security positions. And afterwards, I just went into teaching. I did some long-term teaching positions, and I wanted to teach in more urban environments, where there was just less fortunate, and kids can see an example of myself that they don't have to stay in the position that they're in. And then just life started happening. There was a couple of roller coasters, some bumps and bruises along the way, which, you come into some unfortunate circumstances. So I was linked to a program, and I was with someone who was providing veteran services for myself to be able to get some financial assistance for housing. That was going very well, and I was so excited about that. But then there was just a sudden interruption. And in that sudden interruption, my housing management was not willing to go down a little bit in the pricing for the program. So that eliminated the program for me entirely. It was either hurry up and move or stay where you are. And at that time, I could not hurry up and move. So then, I felt hopeless. I wanted to give up. And then that's how I got linked with Community Hope.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, it's I imagine there are a lot of people in the world that fall into that. You're a hardworking individual, you're a veteran, appreciate your service to our country, and certainly appreciate that you went down that path. And it's a very difficult world. Carmine, maybe share a little bit more, Community Hope. Obviously, we heard a couple things. Maybe share a little bit more about Community Hope itself and some of the programs you offer.
Community Hope, really, we have 3 pillars of service. It's mental health, military members and veterans, and housing. And the focus is to provide housing and support services to people. And we'll talk a little bit about the types of programs that we have. But I think it's important to talk about the why. Why do we do this work at Community Hope? And there's probably a couple statistics that I think would be helpful to sort of frame why we do this. So in New Jersey, 1 in 20 individuals will experience a serious mental illness in their lifetime. And that's about 248,000 New Jerseyans. So on the mental health side, particularly the serious mental illness side, the need is great. On any given day, and actually this is a recent count, there are almost 700 veterans homeless in New Jersey. And so that's a big part of what we do. And we'll talk a little bit about working together with federal and state partners to end that homelessness. 44 veterans die by suicide each day nationally. And so we have a suicide prevention program we're doing for the VA, or together with the VA, to try to deal with that. And then from the housing standpoint, as many people know, New Jersey is one of the most expensive housing markets in the nation. And it's not just the cost of the housing, but it's also the supply of affordable rental units that are really low in New Jersey. So, you could see from those 4 statistics, we've got a big task. And, we put as much resources as we can to those and bring in as much resource as we can from federal, state partners, municipalities, foundations, and private donations. So we have 3 mental health programs: our transitional housing program, our community support services program, and of course our affordable housing program. And actually right now we are expanding both our transitional housing, mental health transitional housing, and mental health community support services. Those community support services is actually more traditionally named supportive housing. And our focus there, at least in the transitional housing, is 24-hour homes where people with serious mental illness can leave the state hospital and come to live in the community. And we have several homes in Morris County, and we are actually building another home along with a contract with the state of New Jersey. And that expansion will allow 5 more people with serious mental illness to actually leave nursing homes. So there's another area where people are in hospitals or other places that really need a community opportunity. And so we'll be doing that. Our community support services or supportive housing is also expanding with a state grant. So we will actually, the transitional housing is a build, and we're going to rent a home and have additional housing for individuals that are more independent but still suffer with a mental illness. And then a good chunk of our work is with military and veterans. We've been doing this for many years. Actually, we were founded back in 1985, so it was just our 40th anniversary. I think we're going to touch on that later. But our veteran services we've been doing since 2004. So that's 20 years as well. And our transitional housing for veterans at our Hope for Veterans program and our Alfred J. Thomas home, that's veterans coming off the street, single veterans, men and women, and having a place to stay while they recover from homelessness and any other of the conditions they might be dealing with, mental health, substance use, post-traumatic stress, and help them to leave that transitional housing and go to permanent housing. And actually our program that's on the Lions VA campus is 95 beds. So there's, a lot of work there being done to help veterans get back into the community. We also do a supportive services for veterans families program, and that's the program that Chancey benefited from. And that's helping families in the community who are on the verge of homelessness or recently became homeless, who needs some assistance to get back on their feet. We also do a case management program for people leaving that veterans transitional housing I mentioned, and that basically is someone who's now in permanent housing in the community and needs a little extra case management support to maintain that housing. But all of our work is really around housing stability. I mentioned earlier about suicide prevention, and we have the Staff Sergeant Gordon Parker Fox suicide prevention program that we're doing along with the VA. It's been really important in getting to veterans or veteran families or military families where there's the risk of suicide and likely a mental health crisis going on, and we can go out and intervene. The one thing that's important about all of our services, whether we own the housing or the other piece, we're just providing case management services without the housing connected to Community Hope, is that we go out into the community. So all of our services is we come to you. You don't have to come to us. So it's not like you have to come to the outpatient clinic or the VA and, see someone there and then sort of get help. You just call us and we send out a case manager and help people to deal with whatever they are dealing with at that point. And then our most recent expansion of veteran services is our Bringing Veterans Home initiative, which we're doing along with DCA, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But, we're really proud to be doing that together with the state of Jersey. And then finally, our housing component, we have 35 homes in 4 counties of New Jersey. Those homes are all shared housing in some way. Could be transitional, could be permanent supportive housing. On the permanent supportive housing side, we have 66 units of affordable housing that are specific to the populations we serve. Because we talked earlier about the access to housing, and unless we can build it and maintain it ourselves, that access is not always there. And so we're very focused on making sure that happens. And right now, with the 4th round of affordable housing coming out for New Jersey, we're very active in attempting to build more housing. Our top project is 4 to 5 units of permanent housing for single women veterans with children. So that's kind of the scope of everything.
Yeah, certainly doing a lot and provide a very holistic approach on a variety of levels. And I'll ask you, Chancey, directly, how did they help you? What does that look like? Share a little more on a granular level.
As I was transitioning out of the military, unfortunately for some prior service members, there's situations where they don't get the services that they need. So, they fall upon circumstances of just despair, homelessness, mental illnesses, as Carmine stated, and just, financial situations. And it's not the case with every veteran, but it is a huge, unfortunate circumstances for many veterans. So, because I didn't get the services that I needed, that kind of set me back, for quite a while during my journey, throughout life. And, I was with, veteran services before connecting with Community Hope, and the case manager he was great. He was so wonderful. He tried everything that he could to ensure that I was, at least financially well and assisted in being able to be in my housing situation and comfortably do what I need to do in my work. So then once I got hit, just sidetracked that I would not be able to get the financial services because my housing management was just not budging with going down a little bit. I was then connected to Community Hope Services, and the person that they connected me with first, was able to explain that I was eligible for a service called Shallow Subsidy, which I was now very happy about, because although I could not see it yet, it was started to become like a breath of fresh air. I knew that I would get some relief of financial burden. It might not have been as much as I was looking forward to of receiving, but something is better than nothing. So when I was connected to Community Hope, I mean, the services, the members, the case managers, everybody was so welcoming. They were always on it. They were calling me. They were asking me, all the various issues that I had and telling me how they could assist me financially. So they have been assisting me financially, and it has been a great help. And my hope is that a lot more veterans, can hear about Community Hope services, to be able to get some financial relief, some mental help, whatever burdens that's weighing them down, they can get that assistance.
Love it. And what do you think from your perspective outside of organizations like Community Hope, but if we look more like globally and more at like the reasons why certain things occur, like what do you think needs to change?
I think one of the first things that should be really, honed in on or looked at when transitioning out of the military is ensuring that the service member is getting the different services to help them smoothly go into, the world now. You're going into civilian world and you're trying to transition back into what we would call normalcy, and just connecting them to just different courses, maybe classes or just individuals, group settings, maybe some seminars or classes that can help them smoothly transition. And then just remember, like, everyone is different. You might have some people who are very young transitioning out the military. You might have some that served a long time in the military. They're all in different places in their lives. And some people definitely need that help. So they're not just going to get out and go back into the normalcy. They need that mental health. You need to decompress. You need to talk about your experiences. Not everybody who went overseas, they do too face some trauma and some hardships, and that's a lot of the misconception sometimes is because, you were stateside in the military and you didn't get to experience those times overseas, that you don't have, mental issues, or you're going through the trauma and things that other people have experienced. So we definitely need those various avenues to decompress, people to talk to, classes and courses.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And I think I didn't personally serve in the military, but I have several friends who have, and one of my friends has been in for about 20 years. He served over in Afghanistan he was deployed for a year, and then he's stationed all over the world. So I try to visit him wherever he goes. There are people that are at different stages, right? If you're younger younger in your career, it's obviously a lot more difficult financially. And, I don't know the military pay, but I haven't heard that it's overtly high these days. So, certainly you're coming out. I mean, you probably developed some really good skills and some very strong principles you've probably developed as a result of being there. But then, who can help you find a place that can help you apply those? And I think having that network or framework around you to help sounds like something that, everybody needs. And definitely, I mean, I see, I'm completely different profession, but even in the accounting world, it's like, I'll call them kids graduate college, they come get a job, and it's like, no one tells them like anything like, hey, you're going to commute all this hours, and then you're going to have to find an apartment that costs $3,000 a month. And then your entire paycheck goes to paying for that apartment. And when are you going to have time for fun? And, and you're living in a new town, so you're not around, people that you're familiar with. And yeah, I feel like that would be a great support system no matter what. But definitely, the experiences that you've probably had, and regardless of whether you served in an active war or not, it's still a big transition. I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think it's a common thing a lot of people don't talk about as much. I mean, it's great. People come back from war, but I think we tend to maybe pay more attention to that. But you're still experiencing the same thing, and it's, I appreciate you sharing that.
May I add something more?
You absolutely can. This is your conversation. All
right. I believe too, there's also this big misconception that automatically, if you're in any branch of the military, that you have money, that you're getting a lot of money, you're getting paid well, and you're just living good. And that's not the truth. There's a lot of people who are in the military, and they've been into the military for many years. And I've met people in the military who are in debt. They are going through a lot, and they've been they've been serving their country stateside and as well as being overseas. And there's a big struggle. So I think a lot of people who's interested in joining the military or just learning from prior members and veterans and even current members that, it's not always about the money. You're not going to be automatically rich when you join the military. There's people who struggle in the military, both financially and mentally. And you need to know that before just saying, you know what, I am just going to run. I'm just going to join the military. And my goal is just to make money. That is not it. We all need assistance in every capacity. And I would love for there to be some more education given for young people joining the military and just people who don't understand for those who've been in there for a long time.
I think what Chancey says is very, important. And it's, whatever transitions a veteran goes through in their life, right? So it's getting out of the military and coming back to civilian, but even at other times in their lives. And the big piece that we're always focusing on is, education and connectedness and access to service. If we can get those three things right, we're going to be able to help more veterans and their families. So it just fits right into what Chancey was saying. I also just want to say, Chancey, we've talked before, but your story and the strength, that you've shown getting through what you had to get through and your focus on family stability, I think it's amazing. Our goal is always to do whatever we can, but sometimes it's just a little bit of help that gets someone over those difficult times. And again, we work with a wide range of veterans, so, it's whatever they need. But I have to say, sometimes it's just a little bit that makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in our prior conversations, when I said, I'm a go-getter and no matter what I have to do, I would do what's needed for my family. But the help that I received from Community Hope was such a wonderful thing because even though I was not able to receive the full services financially of what I needed, that partial financial support was even great because you never know what you're going to go through in life. And any help that I can receive from anybody is just something great. And I'm really humble and grateful for it. And I would never look at the situation and be frustrated like, oh my gosh, did you just give me just that amount? I feel like, wow, you helped me in a huge way because I was at a moment of like, okay, where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, who I'm going to talk to, and how am I going to make this happen? And I never want my children to see that, we're in such a terrible place that we cannot, move in the positive for the future. I want them to see what I do for them, even if I have to cry in private. What they see mom do in public is she's a fighter, she's a warrior, and she's going to ensure that we get the best quality of life while she's here.
I'm sure that they do see that and they will translate that in kind. And I have two young children and my children definitely, they watch everything you do. And there are times where, I'm like, I have to hide this frustration that I'm experiencing and, work's making me mad. I'm just going to go in the basement and I don't need anyone to see this. And then, you display that strength and they will definitely replicate that. And they know mom's working hard for them. Talk about your family a little bit. What's your family situation? Do you have children?
Yes. So I am a mother of 4, 3 biologically, and then I have a 4th that I recently adopted last June. She is 6 years old, but I've had her since she's been first born in 2019. So she's another addition where I had to start all over with the potty training, milk warming, daycare. So my oldest is 18. She's in college. She attends Keene University. My second oldest is my son. He's 17. He'll be going to the community college and it's RCBC Rowan / Burlington County College. He'll be headed there. My youngest, she's 13 and she'll be graduating 8th grade this year and she'll be going into high school. And then my little 6-year-old, she's in kindergarten, she's fun, she's bubbly. You know how they can be. They repeat everything they see, they hear from television, from friends, from you. So, I am just great. I have a fiance. His name is Chris. He's been a huge help as well. He's been very supportive. And I'm just grateful, when I look at my situation in life right now and I'm like, you know what? God, I'm here. I'm here. I'm able to speak about it, and I can't allow myself to just sit and just wallow in something that doesn't need to be wallowed over, So my family, we have moments, we have up and down moments. I have big kids now, you'll see when your kids get bigger and the transition of how they go from little to middle school to high school. And I had to wear many hats, and I had to remember that I can't approach all of them the same.
Yeah, I've heard the phrase commonly, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And it terrifies me. I think your drive and your will is what makes you successful, Chancey. And I think you could just tell you've obviously raised your family. You're thriving as a person. That's an important aspect of this, too. It's not just the assistance some people receive, but the individuals themselves. I know through my own mental health struggles, like there's a little bit of like you have to create your own hope. You have to create, you have to drive forward. If you wallow in the negativity, that's the direction your brain and things are going to go. But, you're clearly an exemplary example of you have a very positive attitude, and you can tell that that's why you're successful. And that's why, from my perspective, it sounds like things are going very well for you, which I'm very happy to hear.
Yes, I always tell my kids, when we have our down moments, I said the great thing in life is that you always have room to get it right. You always have room to do better. Whatever mistakes you had in your past, don't sit in them. I know sometimes it can be painful. I mean, even before getting on to speak to you guys today, I had to get myself together because I'm like, you know what? God, you're answering my prayers. It may have taken some time to get here, but I'm very grateful. And then I just thought back into my younger years as to when I was parenting and when I thought I knew what I knew, as a young adult. And there was some things that I wish I could have changed in parenting. There's not really a handbook. It might be books written by other people, but when you become a parent, you just learn along the way. And, I said to myself, you know what? I am not going to be bound by my past. I did some things, that I wish I could have did differently, but my kids can see the new me. They can see that I'm doing better. I'm trying, and I want them to do the same.
Yeah. And, who hasn't made a lot of it? Let me share my life, I may look like I'm all well and good, but we all go through times. We change, we adapt, and certainly we move on, and then we set a good example for people. And, I think once again, like a lot of I'm a Christian as well. Like a lot of the Christian faith is, forgiveness, and, you learn from your mistakes and you do better, and you do better for other people. And that translates, and that's a positive. And it's all about how you change yourself and continually strive to be better, regardless of, we all make mistakes. God made us imperfect. So at least me, I know I'm imperfect.
Yeah, I am too, but we're learning. We're learning and we're evolving.
Yeah.
That would be a whole nother podcast.
Probably. Yeah. So, switching gears a little bit and kind of, Carmine, turn it over to you for a second. But one of the things that we've seen a lot of, and I'm just curious your opinion on, everyone's been staying somewhat current on the news that's going on, a lot of chaos affecting funding, affecting organizations like Community Hope that received funding. How is Community Hope affected by that? And did that have an impact on you?
Luckily, so far, there's not been direct impact to us. I think when the federal pay system got shut down for a day and a half, we were, trying to figure out how do we do the drawdown we do every week on those federal funds. But that was probably the only time we really had to act and figure out what to do. But in general, we've been just planning for what happens if this gets cut, what happens if that gets cut, and making sure that we have a good plan for what do we do. And it's really a cash flow plan, which, most nonprofits have a plan about if something gets shut down at some point, what do you do? And so we've always had that, but we kind of took a look at it might be bigger if things happen. But probably the two biggest federal pieces for us would be HUD and the VA. And also some of the HUD programs filter down through the municipalities. So, for example, the county CDBG programs, we use those to renovate some of the affordable homes that we have. And so that could be in jeopardy. But, I will say this, what we talked about here at Community Hope and what we focus on is really about disruption. And as an organization, we've been through a lot of disruption in our 40 years. And it's really all about that. do you have the plans in place to handle disruption? Right now, it could be financial or it could be service driven if you can't continue to do a certain service. But I mean, the biggest disruption in the last few years was COVID, right? So the shutdown of COVID, being in COVID, and even the end of COVID when, some of the federal programs had financial cliffs.
I blocked COVID out of my memory, by the way. That was the first time I thought about it since
I almost
since you
didn't bring it up, but it's an example of a disruption that, and again, there's just so many. There's so many. And so again, I think nonprofits are really skilled in dealing with that. And, what we've talked about as a team here is don't panic. And so, we're people that are in the sort of mental health business, and, we have to be able to manage crisis. And the biggest thing in managing crisis is don't panic and make a plan. And so that's really kind of been our focus. One thing interesting about most recently is that, just COVID as an example, when COVID hit and it had impact on nonprofits, the corporate and foundation support went up significantly. And we were very happy about that. Some of our corporate partners really helped us to get through during that time. And interestingly, the talk most recently in the last, 2 months, 6 weeks, was that the corporations are struggling with what's happening as well. And so they may not, if they're thinking they're going to get certain cuts or certain restrictions, that they may not be able to kind of help fill our gaps as they did previously or do on a regular basis. So that was something interesting now where when you think of the sort of plan of action, that might have been something we went to, and we probably still would say, can you help us? But may not have been available for an option, which, was interesting that it was different. But, I have to say things seem a bit calmer. Especially, even internally in our direct lines to federal programs, the shock and awe situation seems to be less. So we're happy about that.
Definitely. And I think from what you've told me, too, you've had some also positive windfalls. I think you have a new program starting up this year. You want to share a little more information about that, about the positive news you share with me?
Yeah, I would love to. So we're awarded, we put an application in with the state of New Jersey. We put out an RFP for a program called Bringing Veterans Home. And we were awarded to be one of the providers in, I think it's 5 regions that it's split up in New Jersey. And so we're really happy to be, awarded this. It's a program that's designed to do a number of things to help homeless veterans, National Guardsmen, and reservists around housing and homelessness and rental assistance and diversion from eviction. I mean, it has so many great components in it. I think the DCA did just a wonderful job of taking a look at all the resources that were available in New Jersey and making the focus of this program a collaboration with all of those organizations. And so when we had the kickoff last week, I mean, that was the most striking thing. It was, it's very exciting in that it's going to be that substantial of a collaboration to do this work. And the focus is in the next 2 years to put an end to homelessness for veterans and their families in New Jersey. In the homeless services world, the concept is called the functional end. And what that really means is, so I mentioned earlier, there's almost 700 veterans homeless in New Jersey. All of those veterans will have a plan, a housing plan. So even if they're not in permanent housing at the moment, they will have a plan at the end of these 2 years so that they will soon be in some stable housing situation. So, again, there's probably about 2 counties in New Jersey that have done this. And so the fact that we're trying to do this across the whole state is just tremendous. And so we're happy to be partners with DCA on this. So it's, we're probably going to serve about 150 households in that 2-year period. And it's veterans, National Guard, and reservists. It's for people at lower income levels, obviously at or below 120% of the area median income. It's able to provide assistance to people that are on that sort of income edge, right? So they're probably making enough money to live in New Jersey, but it's just a little short. And so this program will be able to help people. So that 120% of the median income is a good number. We're looking forward to it. We're happy to grow as an organization if that growth is about helping more people. And that's really our, when I talk about living our mission, that's the idea. We're not an agency that wants to just get bigger. Our goal is to help more people. So if we get bigger as we get there, that's okay.
Yeah, love to hear that. And obviously, focusing on the impact of the program itself, of the dollars that are coming in, you obviously have a very strong goal in mind and a vision, which is what will help it be successful. So happy to hear that. I was very happy to hear when you shared that over with me. And certainly, not all growth is good, but growth for the sake of furthering the mission and furthering the people that you serve and people that you help certainly goes a long way. On a positive note as well, when you think about you and the organization itself, you mentioned that you're celebrating your 40th anniversary. If you could sum it up, what 40 years has meant to you and Community Hope and what you've been able to accomplish, what would you say to that?
I would say that we just had our 40th anniversary event last night, and there were about 75 people there celebrating with us. And it was really a testament of Community Hope's past, present, and future. And I think the largest accomplishment and the things that people talked about last night, were where we are now compared to where we began. So Community Hope was founded by family members, and there was a group of about 7 mothers who came together because their family members were in the state psychiatric hospital. And they said, our children need a place in the community to live. And that's how we started with one group home. And 40 years later, we have the scope of services that we do. So I think that's our sort of proudest moment, is the growth of the organization while maintaining the focus on the people that we care for. And one of the things about Community Hope is 51% of our board is made up of family members or consumers or veterans themselves. And so the focus, has continued even with that growth. And that's really very, very important to us. And it's honestly, in the 40 years, it's been sort of a decade to decade expansion that's, started out in the mental health transitional housing space, then grew to the supportive housing space, mental health, then grew to start to work with veterans. We've been doing the veterans work for 20 years. Started in transitional housing for homeless veterans, and then began to do more case management work and supportive housing style work. And so, that's kind of been our 40 years, which has really been amazing to see. So I've been here, as I mentioned, for 22 of those years. So to see the organization where it is now compared to where it began, and some of the people who were the start of Community Hope, and even the next generation of founding families were with us last night. And we're just so proud and thankful for what we've done.
Love it. Love hearing it. Love hearing organizations that weather the storm, as they say, through many, many years. And, a strong tone at the top certainly creates that. And I know that you're one of the integral parts of making your organization a success and continuing it on into the future to help more individuals get through difficult times. And so, certainly appreciate the work that you do.
Yeah, when you have the power of families behind you, I mean, there's, it's a full sale, Yeah,
I mean, the word community is in your name, so it's a good thing. So as we wind it down here, one of the things I always like to, take away from our discussions and is a, I'll call it a call to action, but I'll start with you, Chancey. What would you want guests to take away? And if someone gleaned something from your story, from the conversation we had today, what would you want it to be?
The main thing I want guests to take away from my stories today is, first and foremost, never give up. Never lose hope. Never think that you're in a position where all hope is lost and there's nobody to help you. As the saying go, reach one, teach one. I am forever grateful because Community Hope, they reached out, they pulled me in the time that I needed. And I want people to know that they exist. Know that Community Hope exists. Know that they have the various programs that can assist them along the way. And just to always stay true to yourself. I know life can be hard. It can be a roller coaster, but find the joy, find the light in knowing that there's somebody out there that's always willing to help. And that's why I'm like, what, Lord, bless me to be able to forever help somebody else, to extend my reach, to help other youth. You know, I'm a behavior mentor, and I solely focus on helping young people with behaviors because I don't think young people are bad. I just think they're misguided. And when you get that guidance and those resources, you're able to become a better individual and you're able to reach out and help other people. So I'm extended. If Community Hope ever needs me, I am extended to your services.
I love that you're paying that forward too. Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's wonderful. That's and a great message. I love that you just shared that.
Thank you.
So if I can do my call to action, Brad, and I'll say that, Chancey perfectly nailed the, getting people to come to Community Hope and get the services we need. So I'm going to make my call to action supporting Community Hope because, it's how we keep the doors open here and we'd love support from your listeners and beyond. But we have events every year that help us to do the work that we do. One of the things we're prideful about here is that, we get government contracts to do a specific amount of work, but our goal is to do more than the basics. And so we do that through donations. So the couple of events I want to mention is first our Vet Fest Food Truck and Music Festival, which will be held on Sunday, May 4th in Wayne, New Jersey, from noon to 7 p.m. It's a great family fun day. We've got about 10 food trucks and 5 bands, and it's tribute bands to some of the greatest bands, I think, anyway. But Frontiers will be there, which is a Journey cover band, and the Best of the Eagles will be there. And so that's always a great time. Bring a chair and join us that day. All of this information is available on our website, too, so if you want to check out some of our events there. The next is our annual Flag Day 5K run and walk. And it's held every year at the VA Lions campus in Burnage Township. And that'll be June 12th at 7 p.m. It's an USATF sanctioned course. We like to say that for the runners, but also has the 1 mile fun walk attached. So it's really a great night for the family as well. All proceeds for Vet Fest and Flag Day 5K go directly to our veterans programs. We also obviously have sponsorships. And then our biggest event, which Brad's been to a few times and we always have fun at, is the Sparkle of Hope Gala. And this year it's November 12th at the Legacy Castle in Pompton Plains. And Chancey spoke there this year and took the house down, in her, telling her story and engaging people in Community Hope's mission. So she did a wonderful job that night. And it's at 5:30, again on November 12th. It's a huge networking event for many of the companies that support us. But we try to make it a fun night with a short program so that people can really have some fun and network and just celebrate Community Hope that night.
Yeah, and that structure where that's held is like it's a literal castle. I remember pulling up the first time. I'm like, whoa, what is this place? This place is massive.
It has a moat, right? I mean,
it actually has a moat. And certainly very well attended to. And I've been a couple of years now, and very well attended. Great event. A lot of positive sharing stories about the organization and who they're helping, as well as getting people together that are in the community that care about similar causes. So certainly a lot of great things. And out of everything you said, I'm most excited about food trucks. My next job once I retire from public accounting is definitely going to be owning a food truck and serving people breakfast. So one day I'm going to make that dream come true.
Yes.
I'll be serving at your event.
Love it.
Well, this was phenomenal. I appreciate both of your time. I appreciate that you were able to spend it with us. So Carmine and Chancey, thank you so much for dedicating that time and for being here and providing more information to our listeners and having a great conversation. I really appreciate both of you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much, Brad. I love doing this. It's a great podcast, and thank you to all the listeners as well.
Love it. Always enjoy our conversations together.
Same.
Warriors, thank you for listening. Subscribe and meet us right back here for another episode of With Them Civic Warriors. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.